knowing whether or not we need to make change is a little bit different to knowing whether or not we're ready to make change. So, knowing when we need to make change, we can usually feel it. It's something that comes up in our intuition, and we can really feel it in every aspect of our body. And if you haven't looked at how to start working with your intuition, I've got a video about your intuition versus your ego as well. So, check that out. But knowing whether or not you're ready to make change is more than just your body. It's also you asking about the reality of what's happening in your world. Because I think often what happens is that we actually get ourselves to a breaking point where we're so depleted because we've avoided making change that all of a sudden we snap and we go, oh, I'm making change and it's happening today. Now, what happens in that instance is that more often than not, we're not actually ready to make change. So if you're thinking about things in your life, maybe it's your work, your job, your business, your partner, your home life that you're wanting to make really major change, I've got 6 simple questions that will really help you understand whether or not you're actually ready to make change. So the first one that we've got is around risk tolerance, right? What is your risk tolerance around the situation that you want to change? Now, I like to think of change as actually really similar to the stock market. And so if you were wanting to invest a big amount of money into the stock market, you would have a meeting with your financial advisor and they would go through with you to find out what your risk tolerance is, and that would affect how they invest. So it's kind of the same thing here. You can imagine you're sitting down with yourself and assessing your risk tolerance as to what actually needs to happen. Because when we think about the stock market, right, you can absolutely get yourself into a position where you've got interest compounding and your portfolio can continue to grow. But you may also have aspects where you fall back 20%, you may fall back 30%, and then you might rise up 10%. So there's that real roller coaster ride before we actually get on that trajectory. Now, change is very much the same as that, because when we make massive change, there can be those ebbs and flows that really test us on truly how committed we are to following through with that dream or making that change. So take a moment and really look at what is your risk tolerance. If things don't go to plan, how are you going to actually be able to stomach the situation, or is it going to completely freak you out? That's an indicator as to whether or not you're ready for change. Now, the second one you need to think about is, what is your plan B? I am such a big believer in having a plan B. I sold my business last year. I had started the business 12 years ago and built it into an incredible fashion empire, which I'm so proud of. But for many reasons, it was time for me to leave. And I have started on this complete new venture, presenting, speaking, blogging, writing, and it's amazing and it's incredible and I'm so excited about it, but I still have a plan B. If everything goes pear-shaped, I know that I can always sell my property. I know that I can always get a job doing something else. And for me, that gives me a huge amount of security and safety, and also plays into my risk tolerance, because I know that if I was in a position where I needed to make those decisions, that I'd be okay with it, but also that there is always still that plan B. Now, the third question you need to think about is, do you have the resources, the skills, and the tools required to be able to make the change that you're thinking about? So if we put it into a work aspect, right? I know there's so many of you, or so many of us, right? I'm going through that too, who are making massive change. But when you look at making that new career change, do you have the skills that you need to go into it? Now, this isn't a reason for you to procrastinate and make a decision to keep on doing what you've always done, but it is an opportunity for you to understand and see where the gaps might be. For me, I've come right into the world of writing, and it's not something that I've done before, but I have immersed myself in every opportunity to learn, develop, and really refine those skills as I go along. So you need to look at, what are you looking at doing? Is there a gap? How are you going to work out that gap? Now, the other gap that comes into play here is, of course, is finances, which is your resources. And it's a really important one, especially when we're thinking about the fact of mortgages, kids, family, school responsibilities, life responsibilities. You need to be able to take that into consideration when you're looking at making massive change. Now, the fourth one is, who else does it affect? Now, if you do have a partner or a husband or a wife and you've got kids, you know, it's massive change may not just be affecting you, it's also going to affect them. So you need to, it is your absolute responsibility to have open communication and conversations with those people in your life that it's going to affect, and make sure that they're on board with the change as well. Now, this isn't an opportunity to get angry and frustrated and really force feed it on them. This is an opportunity for you to get curious, because if they have concerns, maybe there's actually something that you've missed. Maybe there's something that you chose to sort of just skim over and you hadn't thought about. And they might have actually thought about it and might have insights for you. So if you can shift that reactive sort of space of getting angry and upset because they don't want to do what you want to do, trust me, I'm an Aries, I know how that works, but switch that into curiosity and start digging a little bit deeper to find out what's going on for them. You know, what specifically worries you about this change? Did you have an alternative idea in mind? What do you think could possibly be different, or what are your concerns? All of those questions are going to open up that open dialogue, and whether or not it's for change immediately or change down the path, having your crew around you and all being supportive is absolutely going to play into the success of your change. So make sure that you're having those conversations. Now, the fifth bit that you need to think about is, what will happen if I make that change? Now, there's two parts here that I want you to think about. It's the negative aspect and the positive. Now, I want to start off with the negative first, right? Because we can use the positive to bring you back into state a bit as well. But what would happen if you don't make this change? So again, if you're thinking about changing your job, what will happen if you don't make this change? How are you going to feel in a week? How are you going to feel in a month? How are you going to feel in 6 months? How are you going to feel in a year? And it's really important that you ask yourself that open and honest question. Because if you think about being in that role, say you decide to stay and you go, I'm not going to make that change. In 6 months' time, is there something that's going to happen at work that's literally going to fire you off and you go, I'm done? Right? And that's when we're not necessarily making great, well thought out changes. So have a think about that. And it also will give you an idea of, maybe you're okay if you stayed on for a month longer, but maybe you're not with 6. And then all of a sudden you've got a bit of a time plan in mind as well. Now, that leads us perfectly into the sixth one as well, is the timing fixed on your idea? Now, what I mean by this, because honestly, timing is the thing that not always, but will often trip you up, right? So if you want to leave your job and you want to start up a new business, maybe you've got a great idea for a product or a great idea for a service, but you don't yet have a following or a customer base at all, is that going to come into a profit-making business within a month? Maybe. But I'm going to say that also it's really possible that it may take you 12 to 18 months to actually kick off and be able to make money out of that business. So is that okay? Again, map back to those earlier questions, you know, about your risk tolerance, your plan B, your tools and resources. You know, if me saying, hey, it might take 18 months to kick off completely freaks you out, then maybe you need to come up with a new plan. Again, I'm not doing this to say don't follow through with your dreams and your changes. You are the creative director of your life, and you get to make all the decisions. You get to design what it looks like, but you also get to think things through. So maybe there's not just one way to do something. If you're wanting to make a transition into owning your own business, maybe you can start it off as a bit of a side hustle on the side and really work towards going into full-time. So you might cut down to 4 days and start working on your business. Then you might go to 3, then you might go to 2, or maybe you've got another job that you can move to so that you can have that flexibility. So again, thinking about whether or not you're ready to make change, those 6 questions are really going to help you. You know, what is your risk tolerance? That's the first one. Your second one is, what is your plan B? Don't skip over this one. You always need a plan B. Third one is, do you have the resources, the tools and the skills to follow through with the change? If you don't, it's showing you the gap, right? The gap is cool. The fourth one is, who else does this change affect? The fifth one is, oh my goodness, I lost it just then. That's okay. The fifth one is, what will happen if I make the change? It was right there on the tip of my tongue. And what will happen there if I don't make the change? You know, that's that combined question. And of course, the last one is the timing fixed? So this is an opportunity for you to be able to get that bird's eye view on where you are now, where you're going to, what's the gap in the middle. And if you change to have a curious and excitable mindset when you look at this, these are all the opportunities for you to fill that gap so you can get to where you want to go. So thank you for joining me. I'm Lena Broughton, and I hope that you're embracing becoming the creative director of your life. And I hope you're able to look at change and really make smart decisions about how you go about them.